We had player team meetings without coaches every Monday for 15 minutes throughout August and throughout the season, where the players were able to come into a room with a guy that we brought in from the outside, and he was able to have an open forum with the team that anybody could bring up any discussion at any time, and the players would talk about it. I think that really helped us, and it brought our team closer together.
Hello and welcome in. It's always college football. Today is Thursday, May 23rd. We appreciate you coming to us from wherever it is you're coming to us from. Whether that's via the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast. We're glad that you're here. Please subscribe to the show. Please leave us a rating, leave us a review. All those things are really beneficial. People have been trying to destroy our rating because they think that this podcast in particular had something to do with the team getting left out of the playoff. I find that a little hard to believe, but either way, we're glad you're here. And if you could push back and defend the podcast by leaving us a 5-star rating and a review, that would be tremendous. We very much appreciate you guys coming to us on that platform. If you're here with us via ESPN YouTube channel, hit that thumbs up button right below. And you can also subscribe to the ESPN College Football channel on YouTube to get tremendous college football content all year round. We have a great show for you today. We're going to visit with the head coach of the Oklahoma State Cowboys, Mike Gundy. He's been there 20 years. Time flies when you're having fun. And I'm not sure that there's a coach or a program that has reinvented itself more in the last 2 decades. There have been times where they've been air raid, fill it up the scoreboard. Always an exciting brand of football. There's been times where they now, especially nowadays, they're running the football with great efficiency. They're able to really kind of wear you down along the line of scrimmage. They have a Doak Walker award-winning running back that they're going to hand it to 30 times a game. So that's going to be really fun to watch and a great conversation to have with Mike Gundy in what should be a wide open and exciting Big 12 race. We also are going to have a look at some of the programs with the longest droughts since winning a conference championship. Some of the programs that have had really, really long droughts, and those droughts could come to an end here in 2024. You would be shocked how long the drought has been for the Miami Hurricanes or for the Ole Miss Rebels or for the Oklahoma State Cowboys. A lot of teams, it's been more than a decade. In some cases, it's been 6 decades since they've won a conference title. But guess what? Here in 2024, with the pieces that they return, maybe this is the year that that long-awaited championship comes home to one of these schools that we discuss here in just a minute. We'll do that in a moment. But before we do, we're going to visit with Mike Gundy, the head coach of the Oklahoma State Cowboys. He's the head coach of the Oklahoma State Cowboys. He's Mike Gundy. He's been there 20 years. It's mind-blowing to think about. I was 16 years old and was recruited by Coach Gundy. So one of the last remaining guys that I dealt with on the recruiting trail. Coach, it's great to be with you, man. Thanks for the time today.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
This is terrific. And you have a great team coming back. Was fortunate to see you guys up close and personal in the Big 12 title game, and yet you go through the list, and almost everyone that played a pivotal role in that game is back here for you in 2024. So how has that kind of accelerated where your team might be, knowing there's so many familiar faces?
It was really fun this spring to move quickly through terminology from a football standpoint. Last year, we had 28 new players with incoming high schoolers, portal transfers, and JUCO transfers. This year, very minimal number based on having 18 returning starters. We were able to move really fast through terminology and get to real football about halfway through spring, which we've always believed in here at Oklahoma State. 11 on 11 is how we improve. That side of it was fun from spring football.
Well, I would imagine so. And I'll in an effort to be totally candid, I was having a very difficult time last year deciding on my coach of the year vote between you and Kalen DeBoer. And partly because of how you looked at your team through 3 weeks and figured out, here's how we need to attack teams going forward, and completely altered your identity offensively. And so if you could take us back to last year after that week 3 game, what did you guys do as a staff to kind of figure out, all right, here's how we're going to go forward and here's how we're going to find success?
Okay, a couple things. So there were so many transfers, and the portal really showed its head a year ago. And when we were in portal recruiting, we told young men that if you come here, you're going to get a chance to play. So what I had the staff do in August camp was we rotated reps, ones and twos and threes. There were a few guys that were only out there with the ones, but we rotated players because I wanted to give everybody a fair chance, because I feel like that's important in portal recruiting, which is going to be the future. You have to back up what you're going to say.
Yeah.
So we rotated quite a few players, and we even did that through the first 3 games. A lot of attention was on the quarterback position because we played 3 quarterbacks through the first 3 games. There was never any separation in August with our quarterbacks. It is the first time in my 20 years is that we had all 3 guys that were pretty even going through camp. That wasn't the issue with us not playing really well against South Alabama. Give them credit. They did an unbelievable job, very well coached. They outcoached us in that game. But the issue we had is we weren't doing some things offensively to take advantage of Ollie Gordon. So after that game, we revamped our running game. Well, we went to 2 or 3 concepts. We put him in the pistol, which is basically the old I formation, and said we want him to run downhill and make a cut. That's his strength. Where we had a real advantage and we didn't know it was he has a lot better vision than what we thought. He's a big, powerful runner that can make a sharp cut, but we didn't see him as a guy that moved around a lot right to left. And as we progressed through games 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, up to game 10, we saw him become a very good runner with vision. So we minimized assignments that we were busting early in the year. We said we're going to get really good at this. We're going to build play action off of it, and we're going to let Ollie do what he can do, and it worked out for us. So we made those adjustments. We asked the team to buy in, which they did, and then we built some confidence, and you know how important confidence is as you go through the season.
I just one of the best coaching jobs, I think, in the entire sport, and I would think you've been there a long time. I think even you might say that was as good a job as we've done as an entire staff in being able to get this thing back on track. But it speaks of the players too, with the transfer portal and maybe the possibility that there's less buy-in because players aren't as invested as they once were in the university's success. How would you get the guys to buy in the way that you did? I know you ultimately had success and that made a difference, but to get that immediate buy-in, I would think would be challenging for a lot of coaches, and yet you guys succeeded with flying colors.
Well, you're exactly right. And you understand it. You're not so far removed from understanding the commitment as a team. And I know Coach Saban a little bit, but not really well. But the time I've spent with him, understand the philosophy and the culture of the team and the organization and what we're trying to get accomplished. We've pushed that hard here at Oklahoma State for 20 years. College football was the ultimate team sport that now is becoming somewhat individualized based on money. We all know that throughout life, not only in athletics, but everything we do, money causes issues. So our challenge as a coaching staff was how can we keep these guys close so they're willing to go out and fight for each other every Saturday in a sport that now is not balanced because of the financial support that we get through NIL. And we worked really hard at that. We had player team meetings without coaches every Monday for 15 minutes throughout August and throughout the season, where the players were able to come into a room with a guy that we brought in from the outside, and he was able to have an open forum with the team that anybody could bring up any discussion at any time, and the players would talk about it. I think that really helped us, and it brought our team closer together.
It's amazing to think about too. And they played for each other. It was really, really remarkable. Another thing that I thought was fascinating about last year's team was your off-season study of where you wanted to go defensively heading into last year. You go out and you survey the landscape, and you told us the story during our call in which you kind of told us how you landed on Bryan Nardo. But if you could just tell our listeners about the process to hire Bryan Nardo, and in particular his scheme and what made him different.
So I wanted to be able to get into a little bit of 3 down, and I ultimately want to be versatile. We want to play 3 down, we want to play 4 down, but we don't want to do too much of one or the other and not become effective at either. So when I started doing research, there were not very many guys that knew the pure 3 down. Now, a lot of schools do it on passing downs, third and long and stuff. But to actually be involved in the X's and O's and understand three down concept, there weren't very many guys. I felt like that I interviewed just about everybody at the college level and above that understood the three down package. There were real quality guys in high school that knew it. A lot of them knew it better than college coaches. I was close to hiring a high school coach because I felt like he was really good and understood it. So we ended up with Brian again, and somebody said there's a young guy up at a small school in Ohio that understands this. And so I contacted him, brought him down, and flew him into Oklahoma City for an interview, maybe as much to learn as really to interviewing. And then 6 hours later, we had him on the board, and I thought this guy's the best guy for the job. Now, Brian's young. This is new to him. Most coaches that are his age, he's in the mid-30s or something, they've got a long ways to go. And he'll improve this year compared to last year. But he gave us the ability to implement some three down. The guys that were on our staff, we had Jim Knowles that was with us for 4 years that went to Ohio State. His last couple of years, we got pretty good at four down and what we want to get out of that package. So now we needed somebody to teach us three down. It was a risk, and there was some give and take based on how much of it you want to work. But long story short, Brian came in. He taught us a lot about the three down. As the season moved on, we started to integrate some three down and four down, and hopefully that's where we'll be moving forward.
Well, you have some really athletic second-level defenders too, and I know getting those guys back. I know you're without one very important piece, but knowing how many guys saw the field last year for you defensively, how much more comfortable are they now in year two running the system that Brian would implement?
As you know, there's no substitute for experience and quality reps on the road in conference play, playing in bowl games, playing in postseason championship games. There's no substitute for that, in our opinion. We had a number of young men. We played 6 and 7 guys in the secondary throughout the season, most of them young players. And they're going to feel differently lining up this September compared to where they were last year.
Where would you like to grow offensively? We know very much that the pistol, the downhill rushing attack, I'm sure there'll be different tweaks and things that you do schematically. But as far as just big picture evolution, the next phase for the Oklahoma State offense, what does it look like in your eyes?
So we put a lot on our quarterbacks. We asked them to get us in the right play. Football is a numbers game. So there's got to be 6 on one side and 5 on the other if you're balanced. There's got to be X number of players playing a pass and the other ones are playing the run. So we put a lot on our quarterbacks, and we asked them to put us in the best situation. We'll have more availability with that this fall than we did last year because we were rotating guys through, and Bowman has come through and had a terrific spring for us. He now understands our system. I think he's very comfortable in communication and understanding where we want to attack the defense. There were times we relied on Ollie Gordon to run through tackles within 3 yards of the line of scrimmage. They're all going to have to run through tackles, but 3 yards or less is not where we want them running through tackles. Hopefully he can help us in that area this fall.
Yeah, I think when you look at the only guy that's been around college football longer than you might be Alan Bowman. I think he's in year 7, year 8. He's been around for a minute and had some stops along the way, but he's established himself at that starter here going into the year. He's not going to be playing it by himself in the passing game. I think your wide receiver core is about as underrated as you'll find, knowing that DeJon Stribling is now back, healthy, and available. So when you think about the weapons that you have at your disposal outside of Ollie Gordon, how do you feel about your depth at those positions?
Well, we're very comfortable at the wideout position and or our tight end. We've migrated back to using tight ends 90% of the game. We're trying to recruit a good number of those guys that we can split out some, do some different things with. We brought a young man in that transferred from Ohio. We brought one in a year ago from UMass and was fantastic for us. And with the wideouts, the guys you're talking about, we have 6 guys that have played quality snaps in conference play and postseason play that we feel like that can help us at the wideout position. So the advantage we get there is keeping those guys fresh is important. We've got, Bryn Presley's coming back. He had over 100 catches. He never wants to come off the field, but he needs to come off the field some. If he has a great year and has 75 or 80 catches, and we can share those with other guys, it's going to help his long term through the season and potentially in the next at the next level. And having Stribling back will really help. We lost him in that third game, and he was starting to perform like a big time college football player. So we like what he's going to bring to the table. Rashawn Owens was great for us last year. I think he had 60 plus catches, guy that started out on third team. So you're right. We've got a number of guys at the wide receiver position that we feel like can really help us have success on offense.
Well, knowing the changes at the top of the Big 12, it's anybody's guess on how this thing is going to play out. But from the outside looking in, I've gotten the sense, and I think it's a lazy take that the Big 12 is all offense. And that's 10 years ago, sure, you could make that case. I think it's changed drastically in recent years with what you guys have done and with what K-State has done. And now with the additions of the teams that are coming from the Pac, it'll be very interesting as well. So when you look at what you think the Big 12 from an identity standpoint, what do you think it's going to look like moving forward? What are you preparing to see on a week-to-week basis in the league?
So offensively, this league has slowed down some with total reps at the line. Forever, we went through back during your time and after yours, we went through 4, 5, 6 years where we had 3 or 4 NFL quarterbacks in the same league.
Yeah.
And as you know, when you have an NFL quarterback, you can do pretty much anything you want to do. And we were playing really fast. And during that run of about 2011 to about 2019, all head coaches, offensive coordinators, and quarterbacks in this league, they weren't trying to score on every drive. They were trying to score on every play. And that's why those numbers got run up and they were so big.
Right.
Defenses have started coming around in this league. We were seeing more 3-down. We were seeing more commitment. I think there's been scholarships that have been moved over per team defensively, not balanced at 41, 41, and 3, more of 43 and 39 defensively to try to protect ourselves. But defenses have come around, and now I think you're seeing really good, down-to-earth quality football where the scores are 24 to 30. 28 to 21. You're not seeing as many games in the 40s and 50s for 2 reasons. One, defenses are getting smarter in this league. And 2, you're not seeing as many plays. You're seeing no huddle, but it's not as fast as it used to be.
Right.
And there's good, solid programs coming in. I mean, with what Kyle's done at Utah, Kyle and I, he and I have been there the exact same amount of time, and he's performed, way over his head. They've done an unbelievable job at Utah. It's going to be interesting with the 2 Arizona schools coming in. Arizona had a big-time year last year. And then you bring in Coach Prime and what he's trying to get accomplished at Colorado, which is really intriguing in this league. We already brought the other schools in. We have a new coach at the University of Houston that's had tremendous success at Tulane. We've got every time zone in our league, and I think we have a lot of interest. We're going to sell out season tickets here at Oklahoma State again. And you're seeing it happening across the Big 12 at other schools.
Well, what do you think will ultimately win in this league in 2024, Coach? Do you think it's going to be more line of scrimmage based? Because that's where I kind of sense it's going. But do you think it's going to be maybe a little more than that?
I think that's where it's going. And with the addition of what Kansas and Kansas State are doing now, their history in this league, Oklahoma State the last couple of years has transitioned into more of that. Tech's a little different. They're more wide open. They have success. It's scary when you play them because they do what we used to do in this league. And then with the addition of what Arizona's doing now, I know they had a coaching change, but they have really good skill players out there. TCU with what Coach Dykes has done. It's just going to be really interesting, but I think it's circling back to line of scrimmage play on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, it certainly seems like it's trending in that direction. Lastly, Coach, we'll get you out of here with this. You mentioned Coach Whittingham and the amount of time that y'all have been in the world together here at college football as a head coach. When you go to the Big 12 meetings here coming up in a couple weeks and you're spending time with those coaches, who do you kind of navigate towards? Where do you kind of go and who do you break bread with when you guys spend time together?
One thing that's good about the Big 12 conference is that we've always had a good relationship amongst the coaches. And you hear of a lot of things in leagues across the country, the coaches not getting along. but all of us get along. Coach Kleiman and I have become good friends. Lance and I at Kansas, of course, Sonny Dykes and I, we drank a lot of beer together at other places. I'm looking forward to getting to know Coach Prime, and I really haven't crossed paths with Coach Whittingham because obviously they were more in the West Coast, but have followed the program and at times have stolen ideas from them because I've always looked to schools that I think play better than they should based on what their history is with draftable players in their organization. So we all get along. We have a good Coach Aranda and I have a good relationship. So we look forward to those meetings, and we all get along, and hopefully that can help build the strength of this conference.
Tremendous stuff, Coach, as always. We can't wait to see your team this year. We think you got a great chance to make a lot of noise, and we look forward to seeing you guys compete. Have a great summer, and we'll see you in the fall.
Okay, Greg, and I appreciate what you guys do for college football. Look forward to being back on again soon. Take care.
Great visit with Mike Gundy of Oklahoma State. And in leading up to and preparing for our conversation with Mike Gundy, kind of stumbled across a couple of trends. And there were a number of teams that have not won their conference in a really long time, but man, this could be the year. I look at Oklahoma State in particular. I think Oklahoma State, on paper, have as many answers as anyone in the entire Big 12. Now, there will be a faction of people that will be very supportive of Utah coming right into the league and ascending to the top, perhaps. Maybe Kansas State with Avery Johnson, an offense that has a lot of weapons. Maybe they're the group that might ascend, and especially knowing how they play at all three levels defensively. You look, maybe can TCU get back to the forefront? Of course, missed out on winning the conference title a couple years ago, but ultimately still got to the playoff and ultimately found themselves in the national championship game. So we started kind of diving down to the list a little bit. And we looked at Oklahoma State hasn't won a conference title since 2011. I think this could be the year. Not only do I think this could be the year, I think this will be the year. I'm not going to make a hold me to it, feet to the fire selection just yet on who's going to win the Big 12. But right now, if I had to pick, I'm going with the Pokes, knowing what they bring back offensively and the style that they're going to play defensively. Being in year two, I just expect significant growth on that side of the ball. I look back to other teams of significance that have had really long layoffs since their last conference championship. The Miami Hurricanes. They have not won a conference title since 2003. That was in the Big East. It's been quite a while since they've even been in the Big East, let alone having won an ACC title. When they got to the ACC, people were saying, oh my goodness, Miami, they're just going to run away with it every year. It'll be Miami and Florida State every year for the ACC title game. That never materialized. But if you look at what they have on paper this year, granted, I love Florida State, I love Clemson, but I also love Miami. This could definitely be the year that long drought without a conference title comes to an end. How about this one? This is a really long drought, so bear with me. 61 years. 61 years since the Ole Miss Rebels have won a conference championship. 1963 was their last SEC crown. And if you look at what the Rebels have, now depth, if you want to have question marks about their depth, if you want to have question marks about the potential of an up and down performance, fair enough. I have those question marks. But if you look at just known commodities across the board and the influx of talent that Lane Kiffin has had in the transfer portal, adding pivotal difference makers on the defensive front in Princely Umanmielen and Walter Nolan, adding Trey Amos in the secondary, adding quality depth at linebacker, adding quality depth to their receiver core that didn't need help by adding Juice Wells from South Carolina. Could this be the year that Ole Miss wins the conference crown for the first time since the mid-1960s? I think it very well could come to fruition. It could, especially when you look at their schedule and how things potentially settle out. NC State in the ACC. We've already referenced Miami. We already talked about how much we love Clemson. We already talked about how much we love the Miami Hurricanes. We love those teams. Okay, FSU, Miami, and Clemson, I think they're the top three teams in the ACC. And then I do think there is a little bit of a gap. But that gap just behind those three might be as dangerous as you'll find depending on how things might work out. And NC State is very much in that grouping. Maybe they're at the top end of that grouping. Maybe they're at the bottom end of that grouping. But there's 4 or 5 teams that I think could rally up and allow the stars to align that could potentially find themselves in the conference title game. And then in a 1-game season, maybe they find their way to the college football playoff by winning the ACC. They have not won their conference since 1979. So it's been a really long time as well for the NC State Wolfpack, and maybe they can get it done. How about Missouri? Missouri has not won a conference championship. Now, they've been to the SEC championship multiple times in the last decade and change, but they haven't been able to actually win those SEC championship game appearances. This could be the year. They bring back the best wide receiver in the sport in Luther Burton. They bring back their quarterback in Brady Cook. They have a really solid contingent of offensive linemen. I think there are some massive gaps in the defense, potentially big voids that need to be filled, like Darius Robinson, Chris Abrams-Drain, their corners. They were amazing there in the back end defensively, and really at all 3 levels defensively. They also had to replace their defensive coordinator, but they haven't won a conference championship since 1969. That was in the Big 8. Can Missouri potentially get it done this year? That is a real question mark. And hey, if you look at their schedule, there's certainly a possibility, if not a probability, this team reaches double-digit wins in the regular season. You look at Arizona. They have not won a conference championship since 1993. That was back not just in the Pac-12, that was in the Pac-10. So it's been a while since Arizona has won the Pac-10. They're not in the Pac-10 anymore. They're now in the Big 12. But with what they bring back, new coaching staff, Brent Brennan being there as well, I think the Big 12 is wide open. The gap between Team 1 and Team 14 or 15 or 16, however many are in it, I think it's 16. The gap between 1 and 16 to me feels more narrow than any other conference. Partly because I don't know who's won. I think it's Oklahoma State, but you can make a strong case for Kansas State. You can make a strong case for Arizona. You can make a strong case for Utah. You can make a strong case for all these teams. I don't know exactly how the Pac-12 is going to kind of shake itself out. They have 8 new members in the last couple of years. But could Arizona potentially ascend to the top of a conference that is very, very new and find themselves in the driver's seat potentially with what they bring back at quarterback and Noah Fafita, what they bring back at wide receiver and Tetra Noah McMillan? They're really good at their skill positions. They were rock solid in the front defensively last year. So if what Mike Gundy says comes true and it becomes a line of scrimmage league, maybe Arizona can cause some problems for a lot of folks. Virginia Tech hasn't won their conference since 2010. They have a lot of pieces back and a team that I think has a lot of upside, even though some of the consistency might be a challenge in a grouping that includes NC State, like we mentioned earlier. I think that is a Virginia Tech team that's very dangerous. Very dangerous. I don't know if they quite have the pieces yet to win the conference, but they are extremely dangerous, and they would not be a team I'd want to play on a regular basis. Tennessee has not won the SEC since 1998. It's been a quarter century since the Tennessee Volunteers were named the SEC champions. Maybe this is the year. We've talked already about what they have defensively. We know they have an elite edge defender. We know they have a really good contingent of defensive linemen. We know they're rock solid on offense with their weapons on the perimeter, but it's the quarterback position. Nico Iamaleava. He's the guy. If he's as advertised, they could certainly elevate to the top of the Southeastern Conference. Will it be easy? Absolutely not. It's going to be insanely difficult, but who's to say they can't? You know, remember last year and the year before that, not a lot of people were talking about Tennessee. More people were talking about them last year than the year before. But now I feel like Tennessee's in a really good spot, kind of flying under the radar a little bit, but with a lot of upside, in large part due to the talent that they have at the quarterback position. So Tennessee, can they bring home their first title since 1998? The Kansas Jayhawks, they have a great quarterback. They have a really good speed on the perimeter. They have an elite running back, and they have a fairly disruptive defense. They haven't won a conference championship since 1968. That was back in the Big 8 era. I've already talked about the Big 12. It's wide open, man. There's 5 or 6 teams at the top that I think could absolutely win the league. And I would include Kansas in that conversation exclusively because Jalen Daniels is now back at quarterback. If he could stay healthy, they're 8-2 when he started games in the last couple of years. I mean, he's the real deal, but being available is of the utmost importance. And if he is, Kansas becomes an immediate problem for every single person on their schedule. And then finally, last but not least, the Louisville Cardinals played for the ACC championship last year. They've had to plug and play a lot of pieces via the portal. Will they have enough to ascend back up? I don't know. But much like we talked about with Virginia Tech, much like we talked about with NC State, I think the big three are established there in the ACC right now. But that next collection of teams, if the stars can align, can they be dangerous enough to upset a few teams along the way, find their way in the conference title game, then ultimately win that one-game championship for a place in the college football playoff? Louisville can certainly be there, and it would end a drought since 2012, since they've won the ACC. Of course, at that point, it was the Big East. That'll do it for us here at Always College Football. Please continue to like, rate, and subscribe to the show wherever you get your show. We always appreciate the support that you show the show, especially here on a holiday weekend. Be safe, and hope download that podcast. If you're driving somewhere fun with the family, throw this on. It's family friendly. We're talking ball. We want everyone to be educated on college football as we get ready to head into the summer months. It's the unofficial kickoff of the summer, which means football season is near, which means media days is right around the corner. So we have a lot of things to look forward to here in the end of May. And obviously, once we get into June, July, and then ultimately into fall camp at the beginning of August. So for all of us here at Always College Football, for Mark, Jake, Jack, the other Jack, I'm Greg. We hope you have an amazing weekend. Happy Memorial Day. And remember, it's always college football. Hey guys, it's Greg McElroy. Thanks for watching Always College Football. Make sure you like, rate, and subscribe to ESPN's YouTube channel and wherever you listen to your podcasts.